ơi, khỏe không?
Dear friends, can you all hear me well?
Very well, chị.
Thank you so much. I have seen so many faces of friends, not only in Vietnam but also in other countries where Eurasia have the network. And thank you so much for joining us today in the webinar with the title "Compassion is a Verb." We look so forward to also hear from you when we come into the later session. So before we begin our webinar today, I would like to start with a few minutes of settling in with a few guided meditations. So if we all settle in where we are right now, I would invite Abel, and then I would also invite you on to join me in a few minutes of being present for our friends all over the world. So let us bring our attention back to our own breathing. Let our breathing be as natural. As we breathe in, become aware of our whole body, from the top of our head to where our feet touch the ground. As we breathe out, let go of all the tension, on the thoughts and the feelings. That take you away from this present moment. Let us invite a sense of togetherness, of connectedness, and of being present for one another wherever we are today. So let's take our breath out and invite a gentle smile on our face to welcome on the friends that are present here in Zoom and also via Facebook. May you all have a great time, feel connected, and be together with the topic "Compassion is a Verb" today. Thank you so much for joining me in a few minutes guided meditation. My name is Lương Ngọc Tiên. For those of you who have met me for the first time today, I actually, behind me is on the team of Bạn ơi khỏe không, which is a non-profit project that was created during the fourth wave pandemic in Vietnam to boost mental health conditions for the community. So we are very proud that today is the 11th week of our project. And we have, throughout this period, brought meditation, yoga, written exercises, and a lot of events to the community. So today is also one of the events that happened on a very special day, the International Kindness Day. So it is wonderful that we have this opportunity to sit together and to talk about the topic of compassion. How do we practice it in our own life? Can we practice it in the workplace? And is compassion innate, or is it something that that is exclusive from one person to another, or from one culture to another? So I believe that the speakers that we are very honored to invite to our event tonight will really share their personal story as well as their own practices for us to learn from the stories that I believe could be very vivid for us all, especially in the time of the pandemic in our world. So I'd like to start our event with a very short poem, just for us to know where you are in the world and whether you know the speakers of tonight's event. So I have just launched the poems for you to do. Before today's, do you know Dr. Thaw, Cindy, or me? And to check in with the language, whether it is comfortable for you to listen and understand English for the whole webinar. So we have more than 70% of the people present here already answered the question. We'll wait just for 10 more seconds and I will close. So Thầy Thọ and Cindy can also look at the results. We have so more like 60% of the people he actually know on the three of us. And then for the rest, maybe it will be the first time. For the people who only speak Vietnamese, I'm really sorry that our event will be in English for the whole time. At the end of the event, we will have a review in Vietnamese on Facebook, so that you can understand the main ideas of what is shared today. So again, sorry for that. And for the topic of compassion, I also prepared a Menti questions to ask you on. So again, if you haven't clicked on the link, here's the link in the chat box that you might click in and just leave 1 or 3 words or whatever come up to in your mind when you think about the word compassion. And then I would invite our technical team to help me share the screen of the results.
I saw the wrong link with the chat, so I'm gonna send a new link.
Sorry.
Okay.
So there is a link again. The word compassion is translated in Vietnamese as lòng trắc ẩn. So whenever we think of that, the word itself, what comes up in your mind is the question. Dũng ơi, is that the Menti link? Oh,
The link,
okay.
the link
Dũng
is
ơi,
still active.
The link.
It's still active.
Yeah, can you share that with ông Dũng? In the meantime, just read in and read out. There is a Menti check-in link that had just sent. So the words that come out in the list are joy, empathy, warmth, kindness, courage, sympathy, love, happiness, kind, empathy, love, patience, deep understand, perspective, connection, warm-heartedness, love, understanding, loving kindness, understand, empath, thought, loving kindness, understand, love, togetherness, feel the feelings of others, nature, empathy, understand, to be connected to others, to be kind, love to self, sympathize to someone, willing to do something to help, understand other perspective, no judgment, take action, have sympathy for others, warm in the heart, empathy, sympathy, listen without judging, being able to feel other person, situation, empathy. It seems like we had a lot of words that already are repeated many times, like empathy, sympathy, love, understanding, listening without judgment, loss of understanding, kindness, loving kindness, care, action, nurture, heart-based. So it seems like we do have a good understanding about the word compassion itself. So now is the time where I would like to introduce a very respectable teachers and also friends of so many people in our Zoom tonight. Dr. Hà Vĩnh Thọ, I met Dr. Hà Vĩnh Thọ 2016 when I had a chance to listen to his talk in Vietnam about cross-national happiness from Bhutan. And I think as a person who was very confused at that point of time, what is the picture of my life direction, whether it's happiness or success that I'm pursuing for my life. I think I was very much enlightened, having a clarity of what I should do next when I took the path of learning and experiencing cross-national happiness in Bhutan as a model and as a way of living. And I think through my personal experience with Dr. Thọ, I also get to learn about the peaceful bamboo family in Hue, which is a beautiful community that was established 20 years ago for the children with intellectual disability. And I remember when hearing about the stories of how the center was established in the first place. It was established after Thầy Thọ returned to Vietnam and at a very young age, actually. It was many years ago. And throughout the years, he crossed paths in Europe and Vietnam and other countries to really share his wisdom and also his way of living and being to many individuals and organizations. And I think tonight this is a wonderful chance for all of us here to hear his teaching and also personal sharing on the topic of compassion is a verb. So may we cheer to welcome Dr. Thọ to share first. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yes, thank you very much. So, hello everyone. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to be together with many friends, both in Vietnam and in other countries. And I would like to thank the organizer of this meeting. I think it's wonderful that we have the chance to do that on the day of International Day of Kindness, or Kindness Day. And it's a good opportunity to remind us of the importance of kindness in our lives and in the life of society. I'm also very happy that I will be sharing the space and the time with my dear friend Cindy, and you will hear more from her later. But I think for me it's very inspiring both to see that younger people are getting so engaged on the path, and also people who are really active in society, in her case as a business leader. So it gives me great hopes and a lot of confidence for the future. And for me, confidence for the future is very important because I'm a father, I'm a grandfather, and I'm even a great-grandfather. So the future of society, the future of the planet means a lot to me, and hopefully to all of you. So I will give me a minute to share my screen and share a presentation with you that I will then also comment. So I'm also very grateful that I have a very good friends in Vietnam who are very good at technical things. I'm very impressed with them. As an older person, for me, it's not always that easy to deal with the technique of it. Okay, so compassion is a verb is today's topic. And I think it's important for us first to understand the foundation of compassion. I would like to look at it really from a scientific perspective, first of all. So the foundation of compassion is empathy. And empathy is actually an inborn capability that every human being has ever since they are born. And it is based on really a biological structure that we have in our own brain, which are called the mirror neurons. And because of these mirror neurons, already a newborn baby has the capacity to perceive and to experience the feelings of the people around him or her, especially the mother, but also other caring adults. And as I said, we have become great-grandparents a few weeks ago. And it's really funny because although, you know, I have very little merit in the fact that I have become a great-grandfather, it's something I'm more proud of than many things that I've actually achieved in my life. So it's this feeling, you know, oh, we are 4 generations in the same family at one point in time, and that's such a wonderful feeling. And, you know, seeing my newborn great-granddaughter, it's not her on the picture. When I first met her, it was such a deep experience. And then she was only a few days old, and she started interacting with her mother, with her father. And once again, you know, I could really vividly see empathy at work, so that in a newborn baby, actually what the father, the mother experiences is reflected in the baby. And when I saw her looking at her dad, at her mom, I could really see how the love that they have for her really is nourishing her, is really going very deep into her own being, not only the brain, but the whole body. And it's very important for us to be aware of that, because it means that as adults, when we are together with newborn babies, we should really be aware of the fact that what we think, what we feel, the way we behave has a very deep impact on the baby and on their development. So empathy is a natural, a given capability in human beings, and it plays a crucial role for our survival as a species, because unlike many animal species, where the young ones, after just a few weeks or a few months, are pretty much independent, as we know, it takes years, many years, for young human beings to become independent. And for years, they are completely dependent on the love, care, and compassion of their parents and the adults around them. And so this capability, natural capability of empathy, is really the foundation of the survival of humankind. And it's such an important quality that actually I believe it should be valued and trained from very young age on. Now, when we speak of empathy, actually, there are three different dimensions of empathy. The first one, that, as I explained, really arises naturally after just a few days or a few weeks, is emotional empathy, meaning our ability to feel other people's feelings. And as I described, young children are already able to do that after just a few weeks of life. Then there's a second dimension of empathy that arises or develops later in life. And that's what we could call cognitive empathy, meaning not only our ability to feel what other people feel, but also our ability to think what other people think, to understand other people's perspective, especially when it's very different from our own. And there is no dialogue, there's no harmony in the family, there's no harmony in the society without us developing this ability to think other people's thoughts, to understand other people's perspective, even if it's very different from our own, or especially when it's very different from our own. And then thirdly, there's active empathy. It means our ability to really act in a way to help support and be of service of other people. And actually, compassion needs all three dimensions. So emotional empathy alone is not yet compassion, nor is cognitive empathy, nor is active empathy. And I will share with you why it is necessary to have all three dimensions so that actual compassion can arise. And so we could say that empathy is a natural quality of human beings. Compassion has to be cultivated, has to be developed. Okay, let's go back to emotional empathy. So emotional empathy is what allows us to interact with other human beings. If I was completely blind to other people's feeling and experiences, it would be very difficult to interact with others. So emotional empathy is the very foundation of human interactions. And social life would actually not be possible without this capacity to perceive other people's emotion. Therefore, harmony in the family, in the society, in the workplace really depends on our ability to develop our emotional empathy. As I said before, it is inborn, but it can be trained and further developed. And we believe that it should be a central part of all educational systems, from kindergarten all the way to university, to really consciously develop emotional empathy and also cognitive empathy, but empathy altogether. Because without it, we cannot have harmonious society, harmonious families, harmonious workplaces. But then emotional empathy is very important, but it also has a downside. It has a problem. And the problem is that when we perceive someone else's suffering, it activates in our own brain the areas of the brain that are activated when we suffer ourselves. It means then when we are exposed too much to suffering of others and we only have emotional empathy, it can become emotional contagion and it can create emotional distress. And we know that in many working situations where people are confronted with a lot of suffering, like doctors, nurses, humanitarian workers, it can be a big problem. In my own experience, I was working with the international community of the Red Cross for many years. And my job was to train young people who would go then to war zones to help civilian population, refugees, wounded people, and so on. And the whole challenge was, how do we help these people have enough empathy to really feel with the people that are suffering, but not be overwhelmed by this suffering, so that it doesn't create emotional distress and then burnout. So I will show you just a short video to show you what emotional contagion looks like.
Cô có đau cổ. Mama ina ko na chata.
Hey guys, what's wrong?
Okay, so we could continue, but you see, this is emotional contagion. So one child cries and the other child doesn't really have a reason to cry, but because he or she perceives the other child crying, then it activates in his or her own brain the parts that create suffering, and therefore it starts crying again also. So you see, on one hand, it's very, very useful because this allows us to feel other people's feeling. On the other hand, if we don't know how to control it in the right way, it can be overwhelming. And you saw, you know, I had one example with Asian children, European children. I could have example with African children. It's not cultural, it's universally human. So that's emotional empathy. And then there's cognitive empathy. It was a bit too early. Cognitive empathy is our ability to perceive other people's perspective. So as a small child, we think or we believe that everybody experiences what I experience myself. Therefore, we see the world from a very self-centered perspective. And cognitive empathy is our ability to gradually understand what other people's perspective, point of view is. And it is very important. And we can see that when I will show you an example of how children played hide and seek, and one child, if the child doesn't see, he or she thinks the other one cannot see him or her either, because they don't put themselves, they are not able to put themselves in the perspective of the other. So when we see that with children, we think it's very sweet, and gradually it will disappear, and then children will grow up and know that, oh, although I close my eyes, the other person can still see me. But when you look at debates in society, in the workplace, you notice oftentimes that cognitive empathy is not that well developed, and that very often we think if the other person has a different opinion than me, he or she must be stupid or he's wrong, because we only acknowledge our own perspective. So developing cognitive empathy, being able to understand other people's perspective, is a very, very important dimension also for harmonious social interaction and for a healthy social life. So I'll just show you a few examples in young children.
No, see behind him.
So they're playing hide and seek.
1, 2, 3. Here it comes.
Ready or not, here I come. Hi, Nathan. We found you.
Ready or not, here I come.
Okay, you get the idea, right? When a small child doesn't see the other person, he or she thinks the other person cannot then see them either. So that's a very sort of basic level, but please observe social interaction among adults, and you will see that oftentimes we behave in a very similar way, that, oh, if somebody doesn't think like me, they must be wrong. Only the way my perspective is the only right perspective. Now, let me explain to you the difference between empathy and compassion. Because it's a relatively recent scientific research that has helped us understand the actual difference between empathy and compassion. So empathy is the foundation of compassion, but compassion is more than just empathy, because compassion requires not only emotional empathy, but also cognitive empathy. So compassion requires a certain wisdom, a certain understanding the other person's perspective, and also it includes active empathy, it means our will to help. And this is why I thought today's theme, compassion is a verb, is a wonderful, wonderful theme, wonderful way to express it. It was actually coined by Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh, who said, empathy is a verb, meaning compassion is a verb, meaning compassion is not just a feeling. Compassion is really something that we do for others. It's active. So what the scientific finding showed us was that it was in Germany. It was a good friend of mine, actually, Tanya Singer, who also came to Bhutan. She's the head of a lab in Germany, a very prestigious scientific lab, and they did research to understand the way empathy and compassion works. And so what they did, they were putting people into a scanner, brain scan, and then while the people were in the scanner, they were exposed to pictures of suffering, sounds, pictures of suffering. And then what they observed when they observed the brain of the person in the scanner is that those parts of the brain that are activated when we suffer ourselves, either physically or emotionally, were activated when we are exposed to other people's suffering through pictures or sounds. So that was, for everybody, it worked. And then they put this man that you see on the picture, which is Mathieu Ricard, which is a French Buddhist monk in the Tibetan tradition, close to His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And Mathieu Ricard was put in the scanner. And when he was put in the scanner and was exposed to the pictures of and the sounds of suffering, At first, he reacted like everyone else, meaning that the centers of suffering were activated in the brain. But after a short time, it changed, and they observed that centers that are normally related with reward, with pleasure, were activated in his brain. And so when he came out of the scanner, Tanya asked him, Mathieu, what's wrong with you? Are you sadistic, or are you a psychopath? You feel happy when you see other people suffering? And he was thinking for a while, and then he realized, no, but as a trained Buddhist monk, as soon as I see suffering, I perceive suffering, I generate thoughts of loving kindness. I generate the will to help the people. I generate the antidote, which is kindness, compassion, love. And then when you do that, then this feelings or this inactivity of generating loving kindness and compassion actually transform the suffering into something positive. So it is very important for us, if we are working in the field of social work or education or medical field, that we know how to do that we don't get overwhelmed by the suffering that we encounter, but that we actually are able to generate this strong will of helping, because that counteracts the danger of emotional contagion and our own burnout. But in order to be compassionate, we need wisdom. We need understanding. And in order to develop wisdom, understanding, we need mindfulness, because we need to be aware of what we are feeling and what other people are feeling. So mindfulness means maintaining a moment-by-moment awareness of our thoughts, feeling, bodily sensation, and surrounding environment through a gentle, nurturing lens. So it's our ability to be aware of ourselves, our thoughts, our emotion, our bodily sensation, and at the same time, be aware of our environment, of others. And then I put out a quote from Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh that says, through the practice of mindful living, we learn new habits. Walking, we know that we're walking. Standing, we know that we are standing. Sitting, we know that we are sitting. Practicing this way, we slowly undo our old habits and develop a new habit of dwelling deeply and happily in the present moment. With mindfulness in us, we can smile, a smile that proves our transformation. So for me, it's very important to really be aware that in order to develop compassion, we also need to develop mindfulness. And mindfulness is the foundation of wisdom, of true understanding. We know that, for instance, almost all the time, parents want the best for their children. But sometimes they want the best for their children, but they don't take the time to really understand their children. And although they want the best for their children, maybe the way they behave or their expectation toward their children creates suffering instead of creating happiness, although their intention is good. But maybe they don't have enough understanding. So for true compassion to arise, it needs understanding. And don't think that you have to be old or very wise, or it takes many years to develop that. It can happen at a very young age. I've often told this story, but let me tell it again because some of you might have not heard it. When my mother passed away, I was in Vietnam at that time. I was in the peaceful bamboo family that Dean has mentioned. And of course, I was very sad because my mom had passed away, and also felt somewhat guilty because I was not with her when she passed away. I was in Vietnam, she was in France. So I was double sad, if you want. And then in the peaceful bamboo family, every week we have a special event called Sharing from the Heart. And during this event, we are all sitting in silence in a circle. It's very beautifully decorated, and we have a moment of mindfulness. And then each member of the community, young, old, with or without disability, can share what moves them at that moment. And on that evening, I shared that I was sad because my mother had passed away. And after I'd shared that, there was a silence because people were moved. And then it was a young man who's a young man, so-called disabled with Down syndrome, who spoke up, first one. And he said, "Oh, Taya, I really understand the way you feel because I've also lost my own mom." And then he turned to the others and said, and if you are lucky enough that your mom is still alive, don't miss the opportunity to tell her that you love her. You see, so he was 15, 16, he was a teenager and he was so-called disabled, but there was such a deep compassion, and not only in his heart, but also he was able to express it in such a way that I really felt a lot of support from what he said, and it really helped me a lot. And then later I came to France, and I was there for my mother's cremation. And because I'm the oldest son, I was the one who was giving the eulogy, and so telling her life story and sharing some memories with the family. And then I went back to sit, and then one of my grandsons was sitting next to me, and he was at that time 5 or 6 years old, not older than that. And when I came back, he took my hand and he said, "Are you okay, Grandpa? Are you not too sad?" That was a 5 or 6 year old little boy. But, he had felt my sadness, and then he did something, he took my hand and then shared his concern and his kindness. And it was it was so profound. And at that moment, I realized that, actually I was sad because, for most of us, the mother is the symbol of love, right? Because she was the one nurturing us when we were babies and so on, taking care of us. And then when your mom dies, you're very sad because you are feeling you lose love, the very source of love. And then here was my 5-year-old grandson, and I had the feeling her love was going through him. So I had not lost anything because her love was still there, but manifesting through someone else, in this case, my grandson. So that's the power of compassion. That at that moment I felt a relief, and I felt peaceful, and I could really accept the situation. So I hope we understand that compassion is action. So active empathy is our willingness to actually help those who are in need. And for active empathy to be effective, we have to understand their feeling. So it's effective empathy. We need to understand their true needs. That's wisdom understanding. And we are willing to take action. It's not just a feeling. We do something about it. And when the three come together, this is what we can call real compassion. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama often says, if you want to be happy, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. If you want to be happy, practice compassion. Because it's the wonderful thing of compassion. It brings happiness both to the one who receives it and the one who offers it. So to end, I would like to give you a few hints how to cultivate compassion. First of all, try to reflect regularly on situation when you have received and or given compassion. And try to remember, how does it feel? So that you realize that really compassion is a source of happiness for yourself and for others. So it will encourage you to generate more compassion. Secondly, you can create a compassion journal and write down regularly inspiring compassion stories that you have witnessed, that you have done, that you have read somewhere, that somebody has told you, so that you sort of water the seeds of compassion in your own mind. And the more you water the seed, the more the flower of compassion will grow. Thirdly, read books, articles that water these seeds of compassion. Because if we read the news and we look at TV, most of the time we hear bad news, and they water the seeds of fear, of anger, of despair, and that's not very healthy. You need to expose yourself to films, magazines, books that really water the seed of compassion in you. And then lastly, no, not lastly, then you can practice loving kindness meditation regularly. We will have a short one after the end of my talk. And lastly, do small acts of kindness for loved ones, but also for strangers. Don't think, first I have to become rich and powerful, then I can do something for others. I told you a story where a young man, so-called disabled, was able to do a real act of compassion, where a 5-year-old little boy was able to do an act of compassion, act of kindness. So don't think that you need to be powerful, have a great position, be very rich before you can start with compassion. You can start with compassion even today, because there will always be someone around you who can need your support, your help, your care, your kindness. And today is the perfect day to start, because it's the day of kindness. And for our Vietnamese friends, you might, if you have not read my book yet, I'm very grateful that some wonderful friends have translated it into Vietnamese. You can read it, and there are many stories of compassions in it, not only at a personal level, but also at education level, schools, business level. And we will hear afterwards from Cindy, who will share one of the wonderful example of compassion in business, and also at national level with the idea of gross national happiness. So this is what I wanted to share today with you. And I will end this presentation with that.
Thank you so much, Thầy. Before we move on to the guided meditation, I noticed that there are 2 questions that might be addressed right now. A person asks how to shift or what shift a person from emotional to active empathy.
So,
and
say,
then
say it again.
There's also
sorry, say it again. I didn't hear
what shifts a person from being emotional to active.
Okay. And what is the second question?
The second question is in the chat box. Again, I think it's an elaboration of the same person who asked the question. He asked, do you think when the emotional part has been accumulated much enough to a certain level, then it can transform itself? He said that he talked to a social entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur shared that in the beginning, the reason or the motivation why he started his nonprofit organization was not compassion, but anger, but out of anger. He felt angry that nothing changed, so he came to make the change. So can you either comment or also share on this point?
Sure. So as I tried to explain, in order to generate real compassion, you need to have a balance between the 3 dimensions of emotional empathy. So if you don't allow yourself to be touched by the suffering of the world, obviously you will not become compassionate. So you have to allow yourself to be vulnerable, open your heart for the suffering of the world, open your heart for the people around you. But if you only open your heart without balancing it with the 2 other components, you might get overwhelmed. This is why many people choose, for instance, jobs in the social field or in the field of health or in the field of education, but after a few years they stop because they're overwhelmed. So opening the heart is the precondition, but is not enough. The second thing that you need is understanding, wisdom. This is why practicing mindfulness is so important. Also, through the practice of mindfulness, you will find the right balance between taking care of others and taking care of yourself, because you're aware, how much you're aware of your bodily feelings, of your own emotions, and so on. And we will do a short mindfulness, loving kindness meditation afterwards. And we'll see we always start with ourselves, which is not egoistic. It's not to be self-centered, but it's to be balanced between ourselves and the needs of the world, because actually the two are not two separate things. And the third one is then we need to go into action. So just being emotional about things or just having thoughts, what should be different, or is not enough. We have to do something. We have to generate the energy to become active. And especially as young people should really engage to transform the world to make it a better place. So if you balance these three dimensions, then your compassion can be effective. And sometimes anger is a necessary starting point, or despair, like, many young people despair about ecological situation of the world. And there's something good about it, but you cannot stay with the despair. Otherwise you will become weak. You have to transform the despair or transform the anger, keep this energy, but then transform it into something positive. Okay, I'll stop here. Otherwise, I really want to leave enough time for Cindy to share, but I was asked to lead a short loving kindness meditation, so I will do that now. I will invite the bell. So please find a comfortable position. So mindfulness requires three fundamental attitudes. The first one is we should be well grounded. So feel the points of contact with your cushion, your chair, whatever, the floor, well grounded. Secondly, you have to be relaxed. So it's let go of tensions. You're upright, but you're relaxed. You're well grounded and we are relaxed. And thirdly, we are clear, we are present, we are aware. It's not drowsiness. It's not a daydream. We are very present, very aware, very conscious. So try to balance grounded, relaxed, aware. Let's follow our breathing naturally. Breathing in, we know we're breathing in. Breathing out, we know we're breathing out. Let's bring attention in our heart. We're breathing and we feel our heart. And let us acknowledge that we all have a longing to be happy, to be free of suffering. And that this longing is very legitimate. It is our birthright to be happy and free of suffering. May I always be happy and peaceful in body and mind. May I always be peaceful and happy in body and mind. May I always be peaceful and happy in body and mind. May I be safe, healthy, and free of suffering. May I be safe, healthy, and free of suffering. May I be safe, healthy, and free of suffering. And now let us contemplate the fact that just like me, all people and all sentient beings long to be happy and peaceful. All people and all sentient beings hope to be free of suffering. And their longing for happiness, safety, is as valid, as important as my own. It's not different. So the well-being of others and my own well-being are one and the same. My happiness and your happiness is one and the same. So let us visualize someone that we care for, someone that we love. Let's imagine this person is in front of us. We see him or her vividly, and we wish them from the bottom of our heart, may you be peaceful and happy in body and mind. May you be peaceful and happy in body and mind. May you be safe and healthy and free of suffering. May you be safe and healthy and free of suffering. And gradually, as we practice regularly this kind of meditation, we can widen the scope of our loving kindness and compassion to encompass also people that are not so close to us, or even people with whom we have difficulties. And finally, all sentient beings, because all people and all sentient beings want to be happy and free of suffering. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Thầy Thọ, for the beautiful and guided meditation. So can we will move on to the next session right now. And if some of you is still feeling the calmness in your body, I would invite you to maybe slightly stretch your body, shake it a little bit, so that we can welcome our next guest speaker. I'm very honored and happy to actually introduce Cindy. In Vietnam, we call her Quyên. For those of you who have already had a chance to actually listen to her talk, especially also on Bạn Đời Khỏe Không and in other venues, she belongs or she comes from the second generation of a very famous shoemaking company in Vietnam called Viết. But that is not the only thing that recently people know or talk about Cindy. Recently, Cindy was awarded, and I'm so happy to share with you that she was awarded at the Vietnam Excellence event, and it is an independent event where they put leaders into categories, and she was awarded as a visionary leader of her own organization, and they are recognized for having excellent practices and strategies in their own organization. The way that they actually lead organizations through new ideas, new strategy, and new ways of creating a better workplace. And I think that has to go with the story that she is going to share to us on today about Happy Business, a transformational culture journey that Cindy and her whole organization has been for the past 3 years. So with that, I would like to introduce Cindy, and then a big applause for her by waving our hand through the Zoom.
Thank you, Ting, for your generous introductions. I was really overjoyed to be here with all of you. I actually went I present, and now I just like have the whole view. So I would like to see the faces of all of you, because I just feel I'm so lucky to be in this talk together with my teacher, who really somebody embody compassion, and I never think that I will have a chance, like even to share the stage with him and talking about compassion, because like he has illustrated like quality that I think for us as a human beings like very difficult to achieve. So and all with his compassion and wisdom. So I feel very honored to be here today and share about the Happy Business story. And I think we might start this with a short video about 6 minutes of Happy Business, and we're hearing about the stories of our colleagues that they really put compassion in action. So we can understand what we're doing at the Happy Business, and also more about the project. So that will set the very good background that I can share later on more insight into the story, why I think that we need Happy Business in business. And I will share my personal story and also like the story of the organization. So now we can start with the 6 minutes of video.
Anh cũng cảm thấy biết ơn. Hiện tại mình cũng được sống và làm việc trong một cái cộng đồng happy, giúp cho mình có những cái bước đệm để mà mình thay đổi. Chẳng hạn như cụ thể như là gia đình mình đi. Như trước đây thì mình chỉ là làm việc xong là tan tầm thì mình cứ tụ tập la cà quán xá này kia. Sau khi mình có sự đồng cảm, có sự thấu cảm về cái mong muốn của những người xung quanh mình, thì tự nhiên anh hiểu được cái lợi ích của việc phải thay đổi. Mình chuyển qua là mình dành thời gian cho gia đình nhiều hơn, chơi với con nhiều hơn, học cùng con nhiều hơn, quan tâm vợ, quan tâm cha mẹ nhiều hơn, và là đặc biệt quan tâm tới cái sức khỏe bản thân mình nhiều hơn. Anh là cái người mà hút thuốc lá 15 năm, nhưng mà anh đã bỏ rồi. Như về đồng nghiệp cũng vậy nữa, thì mình hiểu được là những cái khó khăn vất vả trong cái quá trình làm việc á, thì bây giờ trong các cái mối quan hệ làm việc cấp trên cấp dưới thì anh luôn luôn sẵn lòng mình thay đổi, mình chuyển biến, mình luôn luôn cởi mở lòng mình ra để mà có được cái sự phối hợp nó tốt.
Trong cơn đại dịch này thì coi như lãnh đạo công ty cũng nhìn thấy được rằng là một số những cái bệnh viện tuyến đầu về vấn đề mà trang thiết bị y tế hiện tại còn thiếu thốn, thì ban lãnh đạo quyết định là chi số tiền khoảng là 2 tỷ mua những trang thiết bị y tế để mà đến các bệnh viện tuyến đầu để mà hỗ trợ. Ví dụ chẳng hạn như là ở thành phố Hồ Chí Minh, rồi ở Đồng Nai, ở Long An, ở Cần Thơ, vân vân. Thì khi mà đến trực tiếp đến một số những cái bệnh viện thì đích thân gặp tất cả các y bác sĩ, thì thực sự họ rất là niềm nở, họ rất là cảm kích và rất là gọi là phấn khởi, và họ có một số những câu từ họ nói rằng là vậy thì nhiều người được khỏe mạnh rồi. Xuất phát từ điểm đó thì làm cho cái bản thân của Bán Ngọc thì thực chất mình cảm động vô cùng, và mình cảm thấy mình yêu đồng bào, và cảm thấy mình yêu cái cuộc sống này, và yêu tất cả những cái đồng nghiệp của mình cũng như là những cái cộng đồng bên ngoài. Ngoài ra công ty cũng như là còn có một số những cái phần quà đặc biệt dành cho những cái anh chị cũng như là những cái cộng đồng mà gọi như có cái hoàn cảnh mà gọi là đặc biệt khó khăn trong cái thời điểm mà mình nghỉ dịch, chẳng hạn như là gạo nè, nước mắm, rồi nước tương, rồi tất cả những cái thiết bị mà liên quan, thậm chí là thiết bị y tế nữa, thì cũng trang bị đến một số những cái người dân. Thì khi mà mình trực tiếp mình đi trao đến người dân, họ nhận cái phần quà mà họ có một cảm giác rất là cảm động, họ thậm chí là muốn rưng nước mắt. Bởi vì sao? Bởi vì họ nghĩ rằng là luôn luôn phía sau họ có một cái cộng đồng, vì là công ty BOKK thì họ rất là trân trọng cái điều đó.
Chị Nguyên có gửi link của một bài báo hồi lúc gần cuối tháng 6. Nội dung thì là nói về cái việc mà thất nghiệp của các cô chú làm những công việc tự do, giống như là bán vé số hay là làm những công việc đi thu mua phế liệu á. Nếu như dịch bệnh mà các cô chú có những cái bữa cơm mà nó đầy đủ dinh dưỡng, cơm nóng thì sẽ rất là vui. Cuối cùng là đưa ra cái ý kiến là sẽ có một cái bếp ăn, mà bếp ăn đó có thể giúp cho mọi người một bữa cơm như vậy. Chị Nguyên mới đồng ý cho mở một cái quỹ để nội bộ công ty mình góp với nhau, rồi đến các cộng đồng bên ngoài. Rồi sau đó chị mới có một cái ý nghĩ mạnh mẽ hơn nữa để cho các điểm phát là cửa hàng của chị á. Bởi vì bình thường ở cửa hàng thì chị nhìn thấy xung quanh rất là nhiều cô chú đi bán vé số với lại đi lượm phế liệu. Sứ mạng của BOKK mình là phục vụ là sứ mạng, nên là mình sẽ phục vụ trong nhiều việc, chứ không chỉ mình bán dép mình mới là phục vụ. Và chị cũng muốn các bạn trẻ của team chị sẽ được làm một cái việc gì đó rất là ý nghĩa cho tuổi trẻ mà không có quên. Cho đến cuối cùng là chị thấy là mình được tới hơn 54.000 bữa ăn cho mọi người, suất cơm cho mọi người, thì cảm thấy rất là vui.
Thank you, Dưỡng. Wow. I watched this video a few times already because we just prepared to just like thanks to Jung. He's really put his effort, all of his effort for these past 2 days to put this together. And I watched it with him, and every time I watch it, I cried because I saw that we did a lot at the Buddhist community, and not only me, but it's actually a lot of Happy Business ambassador really really put together to the practice. So I think now I will share why I started the Happy Business project. I would bring back it to 10 years ago. There is a moment in life that I just experienced very difficult feeling, because I just don't understand why I have a lot of things as a person, like successful, has a successful career, have a successful academic achievement, and also wealthy, have position in society. But there is something inside me that I feel that I'm not happy, and there is something really empty about it. So I really stop and really think what's going on with me, why I have all of those material things that, but then inside I'm not happy as a person. And one of my friends, she saw that I'm struggling. So, and she was so kind that she sent me a book. It's called The Art of Happiness from His Holiness Dalai Lama. And when I read that book, there is a sentence in the book that His Holiness Dalai Lama shared. He said, "The purpose of life is happiness." At that time, I was shocked because like my parents, even when in school, nobody told me that I should live a happy life, and the purpose of life should be happiness. They will say like, okay, you need to have a successful career, you need to earn a lot of money so you can help others. So all of this model really, but not really with my heart, and really bring me joy and happiness. So I think I didn't reach a question. I mission, maybe my mission is like something else, like my purpose may be something else, but I reject the idea. I really read his book and also find ways to practice happiness. And in my life, because I didn't know relationship with others, also struggling as well. So I went that far to learn about to actually looking at and all the things that given to me that I took for granted. Because like being a person to grow up in a very wealthy family, I used to, everybody serving me, right? And then you have so many things, like it's so easy with all these material things. But you take things for granted because you couldn't see, because you're overwhelmed with many things. So I really start to slow down and learn to see what are there that I treasure about. And then that time I learned and I practiced gratitude, practice happiness from the book of His Holiness Dalai Lama. Then I met my husband, and I got married. But then 4 months after my marriage, we figured out my husband, he had cancer, a stomach cancer. To me, like my husband, he's like my soulmate, and we share everything. We're so close to each other. I think it's really true love, and that I found somebody in my life that is my soulmate. So during his time of like 4 months after our marriage, we figured out he had cancer. And 16 minutes later, that I accompanied him in his treatment journey. And to me, at that time, I really, really have to practice compassion, really practice loving somebody unconditionally, because like I think that is very difficult moment in my life. But if without compassion, without the love, I think I couldn't surpass that area, because taking care of somebody in the last stages of life is very, very difficult, especially the last 2 months. And then he passed away. At that time, I thought that my life is ended. You know, this is it's just really overwhelmed, that feeling, because you lost the one that you really love. But then, because of my practice, I really overcome it calmly, and then I started to like, okay, this more, I would like to really reach out and for everybody. And then I went to fulfill my 3 wishes. I have 3 wishes in this lifetime that I have to make. First is to meet His Holiness Dalai Lama. And the second is to meet Thích Nhất Hạnh Monk. And the third is to go to Bhutan to really see how the countries like put happiness as gross national happiness as goal. And with 2017, in the sense that he's always with me, and then really helped me to fulfill those wishes. And then after I fulfill my personal wishes, I think like, what can I first met His Holiness Dalai Lama? He gave me another sentence. He said that whatever you do in your life, your motivation should be to benefit all sentient all beings in this world. Now I fulfill all my wishes personally, others, and reflect to my journey with these like big I realized that I really want to equip my with suffering with a skill that under that difficult situations, they can have this toolbox to overcome the suffering and not let those suffering kill them. Because I've been through that, so I know it's so difficult. If we don't be well equipped in the beginning, we will suffer, really suffer. And sometimes the suffering is too much, overwhelm you, it can kill yourself. And then we witness a lot of suicide in the world because their inability to deal with this, to deal with suffering. So that's why I went extra mile to really ask her, who is like, that time I'm really lucky as well, because her is also half Vietnamese and half French. So I wouldn't see that he will accept the happiness project inside our company. Well, he has many projects. And to help a business is like something that I wouldn't imagine he would say yes. But then I really make my sincere asking. I remember that year in 2018, it's just after the Chinese New Year, on the lunar 5th, I went to peaceful bamboo village, and I met Thọ there. And Hai was like someone introducing me, and then I expressed my wish, and he said yes. And then we just embarked on our happy business journey. It was such a joyful journey. I think first about myself, I think I'm a better leader because of the Happy Business Project, because of my practice, sincere practice. I always feel that I'm really connected to my colleagues. And even if when we have conflicts, we really sit down together as two human beings, then what is happening? Even though it's really long time, because like sometimes you just try to in business everything with my colleagues to resolve conflict. It's actually we slow down, we stop, and we look what's happening, and we try to understand the both party needs and really see what are the things that we can help each other to resolve the conflict, to fulfill both party needs. We slow down, but then it's become more effective because like the relationship was there, and we understand. So I see it. I know I'm aware of the time. Yes, Tim?
No, Cindy. Actually, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but the internet connection from your side has been very unstable. So for this very important,
I use the 4G already. I use the 4G already. Yes, this is the best I can have.
How about trying just to maybe stop the video connection, see if it's increased a bit, and just notice in the chat box if Daniel gonna tell you whether it's improved or not. So maybe just turn off your camera and see if that works at all.
It's actually better now. Zoom is indicating she has a strong connection right now.
I see.
Is it better now? Is it better now?
Yes, it is better now.
Okay. All right. So that is for me personally practice how I transform over the past 3 years. And then for my colleagues as well, during the pandemic lockdown, we be able to practice together. And I was so grateful that 3 years ago we started, because like during those challenging times, our community thrived. I sit many sharing circle with them. I always feel there is a sense of peaceful, happy, engaged, connected together. It was really beautiful, and I also sit in a lot of other circle to really support society outside of BTS, and I just realized, wow, why these circles, they have so much suffering, but the circle in Happy BTS is mostly joyful and peaceful. So I could recognize the big difference, and I'm really appreciate for our practice, and I can see that the presence and the peace in my colleagues, and also their listening, their ability to listening increase over time. And I think that is the very good foundation for their personal development. because they be able to remain stable, peaceful, so they can learn new things. They always feel very optimistic about life. To me, that is the most important thing, because the development, the growth of our people in the communities is the responsibility of the leader. Yeah. So, and then when we think about society, we be able to work together. A lot of social projects. You can see that during the pandemic lockdown, we be able to put together, donate about 54,000 meals for the people on the street, for the people that lost job, for the poor people, disadvantaged people, and then also we be able to donate a lot of medical equipment, breathing machines to hospital to really save lives. I think that I'm just so thankful to all my colleagues to be able to work with me on this journey, because they believe in the happiness visions of the company, and they really open their heart and open their mind to really practice, to really not reject the idea, but actually willing to try and have the trust in me. So that is what I'm thankful about. So today I will share a bit about my compassion practice, how I practice it daily. Maybe it can give you a better insight. Actually, every day I will start with my motivation. Really, every day when I wake up, I always think of His Holiness Dalai Lama. He said that whatever you do, your motivation in life should be to benefit all sentient beings. And I think that, okay, today I'm ready to go out to the work to serve humanity and all beings. And it's given me a lot of energies and courage to do the things that I do. Sometimes it's not easy in our organization, sometimes to go to work, someday you just feel, I just don't want to go to work. So many things, so many trouble, just run an organization with 10,000 people is not easy. It's a lot of things. And someday you just feel so discouraged, but this motivation is really, really inspire me, really keep me on track and to do what I mean to do in life. So that's, I start every day with the motivation, and the compassion, how I do research. I think the deep listening skill is very important for leader to be able to listen. I really try to create a connection, heart-to-heart connection with whoever I met, and especially with my colleagues. If some of them go through difficulty and need my time and resources, they reach out for me. I will set the time to really sit down and listen to them and really observe to see what is happening, and listen to the invisible things, and to see what are the underlying needs, and really to try to understand them, and then take actions on that. When I understand their needs and their difficulty, then I can take actions. So how I can take actions? I think that is like immediately I will send like good wishes to them, wishing them well, wishing them like happy, with wishing them that they can alleviate their suffering, and really send that good well thought to that person, and then can offer kind words like comfort words to that person that I'm speaking to, and take actions, whether it's a hug to them or actually go in extra mile to really help that person. So that's how I practice compassion, like first try to understand what are the needs through my deep listening skills, and the second is take action to my thinking, my speaking, and my actions. And I think all of you can do that, right? We can do that with freshness, with curiosity, with compassion, and courage to really help. So I think that all of us can practice this. It's not that difficult in any encounter that we meet and need our, I think that will help us a lot if we be able to do that. So to really nourish compassion, so that is my way that I share. Sorry that the internet is not that good, so you cannot see my face. But then, you know, with technologies and the internet in Vietnam, that this is the best. So grateful to all of you to be here and really listen. So thank you. Think I pass the microphone for you. Yeah, microphone to you.
Thank you so much, Cindy. I think you need a few minutes to go back to the chat box. Throughout your presentation, there has been a lot of comments and sharing and even virtual hugs to you in the chat box. So please take a minute to read them on. And after Cindy's presentation, I think now is the time for us to invite Dr. Thọ back into our screen, and then we will open the floor for the Q&A. So you can either raise your hand if you want to verbally express the question you might have, or you can enter in the chat box as well. I have also here with me a lot of questions that has already sent when you register. So can we please put Dr. Thọ back in onto the screen? So let me unpin myself and then I pin myself again. Oops.
It's done, chị Tiên.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Thank you so much. So I have here a few questions from the audience to register, and a few questions actually started with the word kindness. Excuse me. So the question asked like, how do we practice kindness in our daily life so that the practice of kindness isn't misunderstood? Because when you do something kind to other people, it can also be misunderstood that you have an agenda as well. So how do we practice doing kindness or expressing our goodwill to others without, first of all, not being misunderstood, and then doing it in such a way that you also feel good about it as well? Like, is there just like a tweak in the thinking or the doing that actually can answer that question?
Do you want me to answer, or are you going to put several questions, or do you want me to answer one by one? What's the idea?
So then I think with the kindness, and I would like to ask Dr. Thor to answer this question, but let me also add one more question under the umbrella of kindness, that a person also say that he feels confused and perhaps even doubting whether in the society that we're living today, is kindness a luxury? Like, the act of kindness, is it a luxury in the society that we're living today? So this person say he's confused and sometimes he doubts himself. So under the umbrella of kindness, there are a few questions that maybe you would like to share from Dr. Thor and maybe Cindy as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm happy to share something, and then maybe Cindy can continue. So I think Cindy has already, first of all, I really want to express my gratitude to Cindy for her very deep sharing from the heart, and one could feel her emotion. And I think many of us have also felt this emotion, even though internet was playing tricks on us. But still, I think beyond the technical problems, we felt the sincerity of your sharing, and that was very moving. And I think what she displayed was a very important part of the message, which is not being afraid to be vulnerable. You see, because she shared very intimate, sensitive issues from her own life experience, and this openness of the heart, this allowing oneself to be vulnerable, is really part of compassion and of kindness. That, you know, if we always pretend to be strong and, you know, in control, and so it doesn't really work. So having this openness of showing our vulnerability, our own, you know, sensitivity and so on, especially for men, you know, is not so easy. We have not been trained to show our emotions and our feelings, you know, but I think is so important. And it is an act of kindness in itself, because we all felt, I think that what Cindy was sharing was a gift. Yeah, sharing her experience, her vulnerability, it was a gift. The second thing is, she spoke of motivation as being very central. And I totally agree with that. You know, kindness starts with motivation, that we have the deep, honest motivation to help, to support, to, you know, try to alleviate suffering, try to bring happiness. And then in the moment, then you get an instant sort of intuition or inspiration, what you should do. You cannot plan it too much in advance. In the moment, and you feel what is appropriate. And I wouldn't really worry too much about what, you know, if it might be misinterpreted, or because that's not what it's about. What it's about is really, we are doing our best to show, you know, kindness, to support, to bring happiness, to alleviate suffering. And no, who cares what people think about it? If you're honest about it, that's what really counts. And for the second question about, you know, is it a luxury in our society? I would say it's the contrary of a luxury, because a luxury means that it's something you can do without. Right? So having a car is a luxury because you can live without a car. You know, traveling around the world is a luxury because you can live without traveling around the world. But living without compassion is not a luxury. Without compassion, you cannot live. Without kindness, we cannot live. Yeah, from the moment we are born, we depend on kindness and compassion to survive. If our parents and the adults around us would have no care, no compassion, no kindness, we would die. And it's not only true when we are babies. All through our life, we depend on compassion, kindness, and care to survive. And more now than ever, in a time of crisis, a time of difficulties, and a time that is challenging, compassion and kindness are really the ingredient of our survival. You see, when you hear Cindy's story, I'm sure her company was struggling. They were losing money. Their stores were closed. Their factory were closed. So the normal thing would have been to say, okay, we need to save as much money as possible. We are going to fire people. We are going to save money. Instead of that, they said, how can we help society? How can we, contribute? And I remember when I spoke with Cindy at the beginning of the lockdown, she said her priority is that she will not fire people because she feels responsible. That's kindness. That's compassion in action. And that is what makes society and possible. Egoistic deeds, self-interest, this is what destroys society. So kindness is not a luxury. Kindness is what we absolutely need as a society, as a family, as an organization, as a society, as a humankind. That would be my take on it.
Would you like to add something, Cindy?
Yeah, thank you, Thầy, for sharing that part. When actually they said kindness is a luxury in society. Why can't we make this as a norm? Why we think it's a luxury? Why we can start with ourselves first, like to offer our presence, to offer our smile, to really open the door for somebody, and always like eye contact with the person we meet and give them a smile. I think that's all we can do that, right? It's not that difficult. That is kindness too, because like you acknowledge that person, and by smiling, you offer the positive energy to the other person and make eye contact, you connected with them. So we can make this, we can do it, and make this as our norm, everyday life, like the activity that we can do, human connection. So I think like if we think it's luxury, then we think that, oh, we cannot do it. But then if we think it's the norm, okay, this is the thing that whenever I step out the door, I see somebody, I smile and I greet them, I say hello, and I open the door. It's a norm. And if we live that way, I believe, in my experience, other people will respond in the same way. They will offer the smile, and I think like all of us, if we can do that, our society can change, and it's become like the norm, and we always felt helping each other out. Yes. So that is my sharing on that.
I cheer after you for that. And I think Cindy talked about the reciprocal effect of kindness, that when you give, the feeling is the return from the person who receives, and they give it to the other person as well, as they return an act of they receive an act of kindness. Maybe this question is for Cindy, as you also come from Vietnam, and you know very well the way we do good, we take good acts, our acts of goodness, how it works in Vietnam. Like a lot of what we do is considered charity work, which means we really act or give based on the understanding of what the other people are lacking of. If they don't have money, or if they don't have food, or they lack clothes, or they lack any kind of thing, we want to compensate that or give what we have in terms of materials giving. And that is quite common as a practice in our country. And what I noticed, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that, for example, companies also do a lot of giving during the pandemic. But the employee of some organization, even though the organization also helps the society, the employee doesn't feel that they are involved in that process. They don't have this you don't see the sense of the employee feeling the good things that the organization is doing for the community. It doesn't matter how much the organization gives. It doesn't feel like that in the people. Unlike what BTS does, in your story, you share that when the company gives food and do these acts of circle sharing and deep listening, and then you experience that the people feel lighthearted and they are positive going through the pandemic. So do you see it as well? And can you like, what is the difference between you as a leader of an organization, the way you engage people and involve them in the process, versus, you know, other companies who might practice doing goodness too, but they're not maybe having enough engagement in the process like the way you do?
I think I cannot speak what other organization doing. I don't know that about their attention, like their intention and the attentions. I think any act of charity is good. We need that, because like compare with somebody that doing nothing, and so we really support that act of charity. But there is something that we can do when we do good in society, that we really have to be listening what are the needs, the true needs in the society, and how we can respond to that using our resources, not just money, not just material thing. We can offer our time, our presence, and the way that we go out and we serve people. I think most of this, if we can deliver our gifts to others in a most authentic way, wholeheartedly, the other people will feel it's more different, and they will feel touched by that. So I think that has to start with the right intention, that what we want to do, and also like put all of our resources and attention and engage the community we in that do that practice together with us in serving others. So that is my sharing. I cannot talk for other organizations because I don't know there.
I think there's one point that you mentioned, but I like to make it verbally straightforward, is that you actually talk to your employees and engage them in the process, and you explain, or you have them speak their motivation and have them actually come up with the idea.
Yes.
Is it the process that actually happens?
So whenever we think that we need, I observe that the need in society, I will share in our meeting. I say, oh, I listen and I observe, I acknowledge this is the need. How you feel about it? Like, do you think the same thing as I do? And then if that person agree with that, our meeting, all of the people agree with that, we say like, okay, what we can do together. And then we pull out a lot of ideas, and then we select few ideas that is actually we can do and workable, and we do it together. So it's always like that. Yeah. I hope I answer your questions.
Yes. Because I think why I asked that question is I also like believe in the togetherness of the act of compassion, because one person actually, how much we can really alleviate other people's suffering, especially on a large scale like the pandemic. So when we do it together and we discuss and we share, the people who actually involved in the act also feel the goodness that they do, and they become positive in the process as well. And that I think is what is also helping companies or culture like what you do at BTS, that you maintain the level of positivity in the organization through the pandemic. I like to ask Thầy Thọ and maybe Cindy also a question on the level of effort. Sometimes when you feel into people suffering and it's too much, it might become too much as an urge to help them. So it's almost to the level of you sacrifice yourself. And we have very sad story during the lockdown in Saigon, where we haven't been vaccinated enough, and the people who came into the field to support people in need, they got contagious by the virus, and because they haven't been vaccinated, few people actually lost their life, and it became a very sad story. So compassion goes with them, but also when you take an act of compassion, to what level of limit or of awareness should we have for ourselves, so that the act doesn't become an act of harm to yourself and worries or concern to your loved ones as well.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the idea of the middle path, which is a very central idea in the Buddhist practice. So the middle path means that you always look for a balance. So one extreme would be selfishness, so you only care about your own well-being. And the other extreme would be that you completely forget about your own well-being, so that all the way to maybe putting yourself in harm's way, which is also not a solution, because if you do, then you will not be able to help anymore because you're, either ill or dead or whatever. And so, for instance, when I was training humanitarian workers who would go in the fields, in war zones, in conflict areas, we would always look at what is the right balance. What is the right balance between what you can do in a responsible way, doing your very best to help, support, alleviate suffering, and so on, at the same time not putting yourself and your team into danger. Because in war zone is very real, that if you go too far, if you forget about the safety of your team, then the result will not be helpful for anyone, because then the team is not there anymore to support the others. So that's one aspect. So it's the aspect of the right balance, of the middle way. The other aspect you have already mentioned is the idea of sangha, of community. Yeah. So it's also a kind of pride. I think I can save everyone, or I can save the world or something, it's just me, myself, and I can do it all. So like true compassion also needs humility, and seeing that it has to be a collective effort. We have to do it together. And I think community building in times of challenges that we have been going through now as a humankind in the past two years or so, I think it has shown the importance of community, how, for instance, many people were isolated, and how this isolation creates a lot of suffering, a lot of problems, even illness. Because as human beings, we are social beings. We need others. We need to be together. And also compassionate action needs togetherness. And Cindy has described it very well in the way she does it in her company. And with us, with Eurasia, is the same. For me, one of the most important tasks that I feel I have within my organization is creating togetherness, creating community, creating a feel of belonging, and that whatever we do, it's not my merit or one person's merit. It's like a collective effort. It takes also away the pride, or like, oh, I've done so well, I'm so compassionate or something, which is very counterproductive. It has to be done out of a sense of humility. And so if we do it as a collective, then also my friends will balance and tell me, hey, maybe now it's time for you to rest. I don't even have to say it myself. My friends will tell me, you have done enough now, let me take over, right? Which is the right way, that we care for one another. And if we do that, then we don't have to worry too much that we will do too much or so. We need really to learn to care for one another.
Cindy was nodding and I was nodding, but because I'm still having my job as the person who asked the question, so maybe I just get into what you just shared about building a community. We come from a society of families in Vietnam, like an Asian country, very close. But because we also grow very fast as a country, we started to become separated. We pick up the modern culture, And part of it is being free, being on your own and being independent, and free away or claim your own independence, and then become separated from the rest or from people who used to be very close to us. And even though we suffer ourselves, especially during the lockdown, we do suffer because of the social distancing. It seems like we lack the skill now, or maybe we lack the understanding of why it is so important that we become together again, and as a community, not like together stronger or greater, but as a community of people who depend on one another for our coexistence. How do we create that? What is needed in this process for us to become like that again?
You want me to share something, or Cindy, you want to say something first?
I think I share. I share. This is a very difficult question.
Okay, so I think there's a very interesting process of evolution. In a way, it's a process of evolution of consciousness, that we have come from forms of community that were given, like, you know, family is a given, and people used to live in a village, and that was a given. And so we didn't have to make much effort, you know, as long as we live in a village or in an extended family. So community is a natural thing. And mind you, even within extended families or community, we have our share of problems, right? Usually there also quite a lot of fights, or, you know, so it's not that it's ideal, but still we have a strong feeling of belonging. Now, we know from all the research, and, you know, there's this famous Harvard research grant study that has been done, that the one factor that has the strongest impact on happiness, well-being, and even health and life expectancy is the quality of our human relationship. We are social beings. We need connection, we need warmth, we need trust, we need love, you know. Without that, we need friendship. Without that, we cannot live. Yeah. So the challenge is we have, in a way, lost a lot of natural connections, and we have to recreate them in a conscious way. And it has its pro and its con. The pro is we are freer, we are more independent, and many young people in Vietnam want to feel more independent, and not only in Vietnam, but in Vietnam it's a newer process in the ways that's happened earlier. So not being so, you know, determined by the family, making your own choice. And there's something, you know, absolutely legitimate in that. But if this leads to isolation, then it's very detrimental. So we need to recreate community, but in a different way, not necessarily natural given community just because it's my blood family or it's the village where I was born, but it's more a spiritual family. It's more a choice family. It's more, you know, people who share common values, common ideals, common motivation, want to do something together. And I think this, in a way, new community building is one of the most important tasks of our time. Because if we only lose the old connections and we don't build new ones, then it's going to be a disaster. You know, social disaster, ecological disaster, human disaster, spiritual disaster. Community building is not a luxury. It's probably the most important task at hand. So just very, when was it? I think yesterday we had a very beautiful webinar with Nipun Mehta, and he mentioned again the idea of noble friendship. You know, is a Buddhist concept, noble friendship or spiritual friendship. So I think the idea of noble friendship, spiritual friendship, is very, very important and needs to be cultivated. And so I'm very grateful that I feel I have a lot of wonderful friends, and the two of you and many of the people that are on the webinar today belong to my noble friends. So thank you for being noble friends and helping us creating a community.
I love the word noble friend. Cindy, would you like to add something?
Yes, I think for me, like, over the year, as a student of Thor, one of the things I learned most about inclusivity, how to include people in whatever circumstance, or in any meeting or in any circle where the people, maybe their values and their actions, their thinking are different than me. Then how we be able to include them in the process, and Thai always encourage us to include them in, like, to practice inclusivity. But then when we say that, it's not easy to practice, because sometimes it's not easy. I'm saying I'm not get there yet, but then I try my best to, like, really include everybody. And I think that create a friendship, because, like, we open, we not judgmental. We always show up in love and kindness and try to understand others. So that is the first thing I want to share, my personal practice. The second is at Happy Buddhist, at an organization, we share the same, like, vision, the same missions, and the same values, and the same practices. And it makes everything so easy to cultivate community, because, like, we very alike in the way that we think, and we speak, and we take action. So I think, like, if we can belong to organization like that, the way to cultivate that community is not that difficult, because, like, we have the practice there, and also the vision and the mission. So that's what I just want to share with Thai. Yes.
I totally agree. As when I listen to Thầy Thọ sharing, the way you describe the common ground that we all share, it really feels like organization started from that. Like a small group of people share a vision and values, and really felt a sense of togetherness. But then as it grows, people grow apart, and then we had a lot of separatedness instead of how it was started. So I think we all have a chance to actually redo or rethink the way we build companies, organizations, so that it embraces more value that can make the organization and the community last.
And I want to add to, and that, and it can spin off. It spin off to the children of our colleagues, and to the parents of our colleagues, and then we can create this collective force, larger and larger. So I think that is the beauty about that, when we have a organization that share the same vision, missions, and values, and also practices. Yeah.
And Cindy, may I just make a funny joke here on your business side? You did exactly why business sells shoes to the whole family, because it's actually included everyone. In such a beautiful sense that you make sure that the whole family share the same shoes, and really happy about that. There is a practical question from the audience. How do we measure happiness or compassion when we apply it in our organization? Do we have a way to measure it or make it measurable as we apply it in our organization?
Yeah, I think this would come from somebody that with a science background like me, that we always need to calculate things. That's why I want to go to Bhutan to know how they measure the GNS. But for me, I think that more of the way that you show up and you interact with your colleagues day by day. And then you can measure it by the least conflict you have, the reduced days of sickness, because, like, people feel happier, people feel more energetic to go to work, and also, like, I think lesser conflict, and then you can sense on the people productiveness, which I think, like, when people happy, they work effectively. Maybe like some with the same task, but before they can do very long time to do because they have so many conflict with their colleagues, they become unproductive. But now with the same path, with the same resources, but they finish earlier. So that is something that we can measure when we apply compassion and happiness inside organizations. And also they're willing to change, to really develop themselves as well. I can see like many of my colleagues in BTS, they're really keen on learning and developing themselves because they more stable, they more happy. So that's why I need to grow. Yeah.
Maybe
I see that.
I just want to ask something about that. Because if you use the Gross National Happiness Index, so there is you can use it for countries, but you can also use it for companies. So for those amongst you who speak Vietnamese, if you read my book, you can see there's one part G&H of business, and then there are indicators. So there's really a methodology of how to measure the increasing of happiness and well-being within a company, and then the outcome would be what Cindy has just described, like less turnover. You will also attract better talents because then your company has a good reputation. It also has an improvement on the reputation of your company. Therefore, some customers might prefer to buy from your company because they know it's a good company, and so on and so forth. So there are both, I would say, immaterial benefits, like people are happier and so on, healthier, and also very practical benefits for a company to implement gross national happiness in the company. And it is measurable.
So while Thầy was sharing, Dưỡng was holding the book up in the air, and I think it's more practical if you paste the Tiki link so people can actually click and buy it while we are live streaming our event. Because in the book, you will find all the ways to actually measure happiness index for the individual, family, organization. So I think it's going to be very practical for those who actually want to look into ways of how to measure happiness, or in this case, we talk about compassion, which is also included in the concept. Thầy ơi, even though we're talking about happy business, there's actually maybe a question from a teacher asking whether compassion can be taught or nurtured in the school for young children. And the observation that the person who asked share is that it seems like there's also now a distance between the students and the teachers. Like in the past, even though we were scared of our teacher, we really were closer to them. In some way, there's an emotional connection between the teacher and the student. But nowadays, it seems like the teachers and the student are separated, not much connection in the school. So how do we practice compassion or nurture it in the school system?
Yeah, so actually this has been a big part of the work we have done with Eurasia, is the project called Happy Schools. And actually Vietnam has been pioneer in Hue province, has been pioneer implementing Happy Schools project and program. So we believe that it's really central to develop what we call happiness skills. That includes compassion and kindness and so on from the very young age. And as I've tried to explain in my presentation, part of it is naturally given, but then you can really cultivate it. But you will only cultivate it if it's valued. So in the schools, usually only academic results are valued. So even if you're a very kind student and very compassionate, if you don't have very high marks in math or in language, nobody will care. But that's not right, that's wrong, because actually we know even from statistics and from research that people who have a very high emotional intelligence, so who are caring and compassionate and kind, they actually have a much better life than people who only have high academic achievement, like high IQ. you know. So we do have a project, and there's also a little film. You might want to add the link to the film. It's in Vietnamese and also has English subtitles. And just to summarize, because that would be a very long answer otherwise, implementing happiness and compassion in the school, we have 3 basic modules. One is self-care, living in harmony with oneself. So this includes mindfulness, awareness of our own emotions, cultivating positive emotions, learning how to deal with difficult emotions, and so on. The second module is caring for others and society. And it has a lot to do with what we've been speaking about a lot today, which is deep listening, compassion, care for others, quality of relationship, trust, and so on. And the third one is caring for nature and the planet. Because we live in a time of great ecological challenges, and children have to learn how to care for the planet from the youngest age. So if we cultivate from kindergarten all the way to university these 3 qualities of care for self, care for others, and care for the planet, then it also creates very strong connection between teachers and students. And if you look at the film, you'll see some testimonies of teachers who share how it has improved their quality of teaching to develop that. So if you want more information about that, you can contact our team in Vietnam, in Hue. Hai is also a part of the team, is also online today. And maybe you can share the link, some links. And yeah, there's a lot we can do in this field. And I think it's very, very important, because in my view, the 2 strongest leverage points to transform society is education and business. Education, because that's tomorrow's what the society will be tomorrow depends on how we educate kids today. And business, because the economy plays such an important role in society. If we don't change the way we do business, there's no way we can change society. So if we have these, it's not the only ones, but these 2 are really important.
Yes. Thank you, Thầy. I think on happy school or happiness in school or compassion in school, we'll need another webinar for that, because there are also a huge lot of materials and resources we could share with you. But back to this topic, I think the audience will not leave our webinar without another practical question on how do we start compassion in organization, because most companies, number 1 goal is still the profit. It's the same as the country, number 1 goal is GDP. So personal to Cindy, how do we this balance between growth, that revenue, and happiness? So maybe to Cindy first, and maybe Thầy make a more a broader answer to the question.
Yeah, thank you, Tin, for the questions. How we start? How we start a happy project inside our organization? Is it the first question?
How do business balance between growth, revenue, and happiness?
I think this has to look really on the short term and the long term. We really have to be conscious about like what we feel at the moment. For example, one of the things is very good example during the pandemic lockdown, and now all of our supply chain is disrupted. So we don't have a lot of material to produce. So it will affect the revenue of the company a lot. Like we experience like half of the revenue, our factory experienced half the revenue of 2019. So now we really have to work hard to really recover it, so we can like provide job for our workers, so they have work to do. So that means we really have to look at the current situation, what are needed, and balance it. And in the normal case, then we gonna really focus on the happiness and well-being. But this time, like we more focus on the effectiveness, so that we can provide jobs. So it's really based on what are needed. When you really, as a leader, you have to really send what are needed, what needs to be done, and you communicate with the people very clearly about the goal and how to achieve it. And then I think it's just like, it's not one time, right? It's really a process. And then you really have to sense what's coming and how you adjust it. And one of the things in the GNS framework is have that 9 domain. The thing is that to really balance these 9 domains. So you always roll the organization in a wheel, circle wheel, and in a balanced way, so you can maintain your happiness and well-being. I think that is my sharing on that. Yeah, it's just not just to sacrifice this thing or another thing, but we really understand what are important at that moment and how we communicate on that, the goal, so everybody align and can take action. Yeah.
Thank you, Cindy. And for Thầy Thọ, maybe on a more general observation or advice, how do organizations start bringing compassion? Do they need to change the way they look at profit as the number one goal?
I think there's not one answer, one size fits all. It really depends where the organization stands. So basically, there are 3 possible entry points. One entry point is vision and mission. So what is actually the goal of the organization? So that's one entry point. And we align as much as possible with this vision and mission of the organization. So that one might be the first thing you want to work on. Another entry point would be what Cindy has mentioned, which is about analyzing the situation of the company or of the organization from the perspective of the 9 domains. And when you do that, the question is also how much is enough? So, it's very important to realize that the 9 domains are interdependent, and that if you want to be 100% everywhere, you will necessarily fail. So you have to find the balanced approach. And I don't want to explain more because Cindy has done it very well. What is then the right, at a certain moment, maybe now the revenue is really what is lacking. So you will have to put more emphasis on that. If the revenue has risen, you can put more emphasis on something else, like, the time balance, for instance, for the co-workers, something like that. But so it's really something very flexible, very dynamic. It's not like something fixed. And the third one, and it's always possible to start there, is working on happiness skills of the people. So really, the inner attitude, because no matter in what organization, if the people are kinder, more compassionate, listen more, work in a better way together, it will have a positive impact, are more mindful and so on. So happiness skills is always a possibility to start, because you are not always, like Cindy was in the very special position that as a CEO, she could give a direction to your organization. But we have, courses in universities in Germany, in Switzerland, and most of the participants are not CEOs. They are maybe managers or something. So they cannot decide the whole organization will change, but they can contribute to creating a better workplace environment, a better company culture, by being role models. So ambassadors, if you want, of, compassion, kindness, and so on. And that has an impact because, as you said yourself before, compassion is contagious. Thankfully, not only viruses are contagious, but compassion is also contagious. Kindness is also contagious. Love is also contagious, and even more so than viruses, because viruses are not natural to humans, but love and compassion is very natural to us as humans. But I have as a little remark, it's already 10:02, so we have overstepped the time. We should slowly come to an end.
Thank you so much, Thầy. Also for the reminder of the time, I tend to, I don't know if it's an act of compassion when I see the questions coming in from the audience and feel like I need to share it so that the person get the answer and it might help them. So maybe we close with this one because we haven't actually mentioned it. And I think it's also something very present when we think about compassion. One person say, I have a strong feeling that compassion cannot spread, for example, in Europe without cutting the ties to Buddhism. What do you think about this comment or remark or feelings that a person shares? Is there a tie to the person say, I have a very strong feeling that compassion cannot spread, for example, in Europe without cutting the ties to Buddhism.
Oh, well, you see, compassion is not Buddhist. Compassion is human. You know, it's you know, like, for instance, it's not only Buddhist children who need compassion of their parents to grow. It's every child in the world, no matter where they grow, they need care and compassion and love and affection. So it's not a Buddhist quality, it's a human quality. So Buddhism has certain ways to manifest it, then Christianity has other ways to manifest it, or non-religious, you can also manifest it in a non-religious way. It doesn't have to be religious. So it's really adapting it to your context so that people can accept it. You know, when we work, like for instance, now we work in a business in Switzerland, you know, I cannot come there with a religious discourse, or if I work in a school in Switzerland, but even in the school in Hue, I cannot work with a religious discourse because it's a state school. So we are not spreading Buddhism, we are spreading compassion. And Buddhism might be one way to manifest it, but there are many other ways. So I would not at all equate Buddhism with compassion with Buddhism, or compassion with Christianity, or compassion with whatever. You know, compassion is a fundamental human need. And no matter where we are, we need it. And no matter what culture we belong to, we can share it. So I think it's completely beyond specific cultural you know, context, but a specific cultural context can help us to find the right words, the right, you know. So in a Buddhist context, there are a lot of Buddhist wisdom that can help us. In a different context, we will have to find different. And you know, if you look at my presentation, 90% of it was scientific, and only I mentioned one, His Holiness Dalai Lama, and once Thich Nhat Hanh, but 90% were just scientific findings. So it doesn't have to be religious.
Yes.
Hey, I want to contribute on that. So recently I attended a course from Service Space. It's called Compassion Talk. So basically it's gathered like 20 traditions,
21
religions. No, one day is silent, I think. So they just have 20. Yes. So Thing was there with us. And so this really, like, when we look at these 20 like religions and traditions, and also they have their way of practice compassion. Compassion is not unique to Buddhism. And I find it so interesting around the world, all of the religions and traditions, they have their own practice. Even that people have no religion at all, they have their practice on kindness and sending love to others. That is compassion. So we wouldn't say that we need to cut tie this, because I think we really have to widen our understanding on others, what other practices do, and really attending that compassion part really widen my understanding around the world, how people practice compassion. There are many ideas that we can do this. So it's really beautiful. It makes our work so abundant, you know, very rich. It's like, and then when we be able to celebrate that with other traditions, it makes our life interesting too. Yeah. So that is my share.
And thanks, Cindy, for saying the word abundance and broadening our understanding. Because the more we can broaden our understanding, the more actually we have ideas and ways of how do we actually apply or take compassion as a verb and an action to benefit humankind and to make our life on earth sustainable and even richer for all the sentient beings. So with that, I would like to really say the word big thank you to the presence of Thầy Thọ, of Cindy, and of all the friends here who really come and share our energy on this topic. And I really believe that the energy that we share in our Zoom today will be replicated, rippling to our community and society out there for anybody who might need it. We have a link for us to check out in the chat box. So you might just click on it and share your feelings. And I'd like to actually share a poem of Mary Oliver to really prove to you all that compassion doesn't come from Buddhism or is inclusive to one religion or belief after another. So I think this is a very beautiful poem to share at the end of our webinar today for us to feel lighthearted. So let me share it here. And maybe I just read it for those who cannot, at home, who cannot read it. So this poem by Mary Oliver. To begin with, the sweetgrass. Will the hungry ox stand in the field and not eat of the sweetgrass? Will the owl bite off its own wings? Will the lark forget to leave its body in the air or forget to sing? Will the rivers run upstream? Behold, I say, behold, the reliability and the finery and the teaching of this pretty earth gift. Eat bread and understand comfort. Drink water and understand delight. Visit the garden where the scarlet trumpets are opening their bodies for the hummingbirds, who are drinking the sweetness, who are thrillingly gluttonous. For one thing leads to another. Soon you will notice how stones shy underfoot. Eventually, tide will be the only calendar you believe in. And someone's face whom you love will be as a star, both intimate and ultimate. And you will be both heart-shaken and respectful. And you will hear the air itself like a beloved whisper. Or let me, for a while longer, enter the two beautiful bodies of your lungs. The witchery of living is my whole conversation with you, my darling. All I can tell you is what I know. Look and look again. This world is not just a little thrill for the eye. It's more than bones. It's more than the delicate twist with its personal pulse. It's more than the beating of the single heart. It's praising. It's giving until the giving feels like receiving. You have a life. Just imagine that. You have this day and maybe another and maybe still another. Someday I'm going to ask my friend Bolas, the dancer, the porter, to make a begging bowl, which I believe my soul needs. And if I come to you, to the door of your comfortable house, with unwashed clothes and unclean fingernails, will you put something into it? I would like to take this chance. I would like to give you this chance. We do one thing or another. We stay the same or we change. Congratulations if you have changed. Let me ask you this. Do you also think that beauty exists for some fabulous reason? And if you have not been enchanted by this adventure, your life, what would do for you? What I loved in the beginning, I think, was mostly myself. Never mind that I had to, since somebody had to. That was many years ago. Since then, I have gone out of my confinement, though with difficulty. I mean the ones that thought to ruin my heart, I cash them out. I put them on the mud pile. They will be nourishment somehow. Everything is nourishment somehow or another. And I have become the child of the clouds and of hope. I have become the friend of the enemy, whoever that is. I have become older and cherishing what I have learned. I have become younger. And what do I risk to tell you this, which is all I know? Love yourself, then forget it, then love the world.
Beautiful. Thank you. Nice conclusion.
So hope that the love we have for ourselves and our loved ones will be spread throughout this world to all the sentient beings and who might need it right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Good day. Is it in